What it do? Welcome to another one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. So let's get with it. Let's talk some boxing. September 13th, guys. It's not that far away. Canelo Crawford. Great fight. Great matchup. Um, it's come to a point where you have to be optimistic about it, right? So, a lot of you that know me, and if you really know me, at the get go, I wasn't even hyped for this fight, to be honest with you. I've said this too many times, like literally verbatim, that I wasn't hyped about this fight. I understand the business of boxing. I understand the new Saudi Arabian sports washing in boxing. Not that I understand it now, but I understood it back then, and that was the reason why I wasn't up for it. All right. It may be interpreted that I was a hater for Saudi sports washing. Not sports washing in general, but Saudi sports washing. But hey, it's good to be optimistic for a country, given their history, given their climate, not literally their climate, but their climate in politics, that maybe we should give them benefit of doubt for their reform strategies, right? So, anyways, all that stuff in a mix was one of the reasons why I wasn't hyped for Canelo versus Crawford, because they needed to sell a fight, a mega fight, right? Getting an All American star, or one of the last, or the last All American stars, which is Terrence Crawford, and get the moneymaker in boxing, the Mexican Saul Canelo Alvarez. So they saw that from a business perspective, political, geopolitical perspective. Again, hence sports washing, Saudi Arabian sports washing. And I'm glad that a lot of my friends and other cats on the channels, they see that now, or they had acknowledged it even before, in seeing how much they invest in other sports before they got deep with boxing, right? Be it Ronaldo and Neymar, they're trying to get Messi over there too, right? They were laughed at. The Saudis were laughed at because they would do, you know, these, I wouldn't say ideal. Well, yeah, it would be ideal if you would think that the stadiums would be filled, right? But these stadiums were ghost towns, man. Even with Neymar and Ronaldo playing there, right? Did the Saudis care? Nah. They still dropped the bag just to get those guys to play there, to represent Saudi Arabia. That's what it is, right? These star people, these star athletes are representing Saudi Arabia. Terrence Crawford, Canelo, Usyk, Fury, Joshua, representing Saudi sports washing. Again, Ronaldo, Neymar, you name it. And then include big golf tournaments, tennis tournaments, the Formula One racing, and et cetera, right? So that's why I wasn't big on it in the get go. I thought it was too, I wouldn't even say commercialized, more like literally political strategies, geopolitical strategies, right? More than the business side and commercialism in sports, because that's the Saudis aren't there, all right? Or maybe they are, but not in the way the Westerners see it, or the way we experience it. Okay, so in this video though, I want to talk about some of the things I don't like or I didn't like with Crawford versus Madrimov. I was watching it today actually because I was hyped about it. And, as time goes on, as the days come, you want to look at the gaps and errors that Crawford's making, right? If you want to pick Crawford, what does he need to do? What mistakes he shouldn't do when fighting a guy like Canelo Alvarez? So you want to see those mistakes. And why Madrimov? Well, obviously it's 154. Madrimov is probably the biggest guy that Crawford has faced. I wouldn't say probably he is the biggest guy Crawford has faced. All right, herky jerky, high ring IQ, amazing pedigree, amazing amateur pedigree. Style wise is nice. All right, it's not so much that Madrimov and Canelo are completely different styles. It's about the mistakes, the errors that elite fighters make within 3 minutes of each round. Right? That makes sense, right? I'm sure you guys are following me on that. And so, what I didn't like about this fight is more so the broadcast of it. I know Sean Porter, and I'm gonna really focus on Sean Porter. I know Sean Porter he's been with on the broadcast teams before on many DAZN fights, but usually for the most part it is Chris Mannix and Sergio Mora and other guest invites. You'll hear, be it a Carl Froch or a Danny Jacobs. I'm not sure if Carl Froch, but I know for sure Sean Porter's been there too. And what I don't like so much about Sean Porter on a broadcast when it comes to Crawford, or it might be a good thing. Who knows? Maybe Porter is there to make sure that it's a even playing field in a broadcast. But ironically, it hasn't been that case. Okay? So for example, for me, I find Sean Porter a bit suspect in character post retirement, okay? It may even be like in his last fights or the one he had with Crawford in general, right? By the way, I liked that fight, Crawford versus Sean Porter. I thought it was kind of neck to neck. I would see obviously Crawford was edging in that fight, even up to the last round where Sean Porter pretty much quit. I'm gonna say Sean Porter quit more so than Sean Porter, the father, or Kenny Porter, sorry, stopping the fight, which that too felt a bit suspect. All right. But the reason why I'm blaming it more on Sean Porter is because he did complain, or he was like showing that he was complaining, banging on the canvas. He got dropped twice in that one in the last round, right? Um, but it wasn't so much that he was severely hurt, in which we've seen fights where guys are really, really hurt, right, guys? I mean, for example, you can take like a Ryan Garcia or Devin Haney, right? Which in some narratives, be it from let's say Ryan Garcia's world, they said they were surprised that they didn't stop the fight, right? How much damage Devin Haney was getting in that fight, right? Think about the fight itself, not the post aftermath, but the damage in that fight. All right, so you could apply that concern with the Sean Porter versus Crawford fight, in that to me, and even other fans agree, other my mates agree that Sean Porter he wasn't really hurt in that round. And you have to wonder why didn't he go against what his father was doing? All right. And I think I've seen that before too. I'm trying to think, what fight did Sean Porter complain to his father to not stop the fight? Or I don't remember. Maybe I'm getting confused. Maybe another fight, but it might be that fight actually. I'm probably getting confused because Sean Porter might have he probably looked to his father. The adrenaline's running, and he looks to his dad like, "Nah, man, what are you doing? Stopping the fight, right?" So that itself, I don't know if it's so much Sean Porter's strategic doing. And this is me now being all conspiracy theory, but Kenny Porter himself, didn't have a good history with Crawford in the past. Well, who knows? Maybe they evened it out. Obviously they have, but there's stories where the Porters acknowledge that Crawford is a bad man, kind of behind the scenes, outside of the ring. Um, how does that translate where I'm getting at about why they stopped the fight? Um, it could be it may be that Kenny Porter didn't want Sean Porter to get really hurt. But again, guys, there's ways to combat those situations. Hey man, Sean Porter could have clinched, to get out of those situations. He could have evaded. I mean, one of the guys that I like, and I say this many times, uh, Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is a really, really good evader. Very, very good foot movement. But I like it because at least Keith likes to circle around the ring and show some variation in style when he's doing that. Compared to other fighters that I like to criticize and that get criticism, like let's say a Devin Haney, right? For example, a Keith Thurman, when he is hurt and he would evade, is different than, let's say, a Devin Haney evading Jose Ramirez for 12 rounds, right? It may be apples to oranges, but I'm sure you guys get me with that. So, anyways, why am I contextualizing all this stuff with Crawford and Porter? Because post that fight, when Sean Porter retired and he went full broadcast and his thing, for me, guys, and I'm gonna say this, guys, Sean Porter has glazed Terrence Crawford too much. He's glazed too much. I don't know why. Why is it that Sean Porter really admires Terrence Crawford to the fullest post losing to him? All right. And now, before I forget this, in the broadcast with Sergio Mora, Chris Mannix, and Sean Porter in the broadcast, you could see how they're trolling Sean Porter because Sean Porter is critically over biased to Terrence Crawford in that fight. I mean, just look at the way it's being scored. If you know boxing, and probably, I guess before I forget, let me just go to round five, for example. Now, round five, guys. By the way, round five, all the judges had given it to Madrimov. Guys, focus on round five. Watch it for yourselves. Madrimov was controlling that round full stop, without a doubt. It was even touching Crawford. Touching him so much that at the very last 10 seconds of it, or maybe 5 seconds, Crawford is like, damn, he switches up last minute. He literally switches up to orthodox mode because he was getting tagged too many times, and Crawford couldn't figure out Madrimov in the fifth round. Let me repeat that again. Crawford couldn't figure out Madrimov in the fifth round. It could even, this may be subjective, and I'll let you guys go by, rephrase it. But for me, I thought Madrimov dominated Terrence Crawford in the fifth round. Domination as far as chess match ring IQ. All right? So keep in mind, we're on the fifth, we're finishing the fifth round. I think we're going into the sixth round, and that's when you can hear the broadcast, I guess, reviewing who's winning and the scorecards, right? Now keep in mind, guys, that in the final end of the fifth round, Sean Porter, I mean, or let me just say this. In round five, listen to Sean Porter's analysis, okay? And at the very end, Sean Porter goes, "You see it, guys? You see it? He's switching, and then the round's over. Like only 5 seconds left, the round's over, as if that is important, right? Like, okay, he switched. All right, he switched stance in the last 3 or 4 seconds. Come on, guys, this is not exaggerate. So why would Sean Porter say that? It's overglazing, guys. Now, I don't know if that's by design from what the Zone, Ring Magazine, or Riyadh Season they really influenced Sean Porter to steer that way to sell Terrence Crawford more. It could possibly be that, guys. Or no, or it's genuine that Sean Porter really admires Terrence Crawford that much, even after losing to him in a good chess match fight, right? It's weird. I mean, if I was Sean Porter, I would have felt a bit salty that I lost, but I would hype myself up because I had a pretty good fight with Terrence Crawford, and the way it ended, it's kind of like it would. It's not like the way Crawford smashed Jose Benavidez in that last round, right? It's not even the same situation as far as being hurt. All right. So follow me here, guys. So that's round five, right? Sean Porter, I mean, by the way, Sean Porter only has Crawford one round leading up to the sixth round. He didn't even give round five to Terrence Crawford. That's just mind-boggling, guys. Let me repeat that. Sean Porter didn't give round five to Israel Madrimov. There's no excuse for that, really. What was he watching? You know what I'm saying? So just remember, he only had one round for Israel Madrimov leading into the sixth round, and he didn't even give round five to Terrence Crawford. So we go into round six. All right. Now keep in mind, round six, probably the director in the booth, he's overhearing, right? He has to analyze it because really the director of the broadcast has to maintain quality control, if you want to call it that, quality control and the realism of what's being broadcasted, right? Broadcasted, because Sergio Mora, Chris Mannix, and Porter have an importance. They have a responsibility for boxing fans on a DAZN broadcast, right? So round six comes, and Sean Porter says, and I might be mistaken here, but the broadcast team, they troll Sean Porter and saying, "Hey man, Madrimov is outscoring, or he's beating Crawford on the punch stats, right?" Right, and they even troll him and saying, "Hey man, are you sure? Are you scoring the fight correctly? What is it you're watching?" And I guess Sean Porter, he kind of doubles down, right? He's like, "Damn, well, okay, I was not that wrong," is what he's saying. All right. So in other words, Sean Porter, he's maybe put in a spot that his bias has been exposed, literally. Guys, I'm not even over exaggerating here. Just watch round five and round six. Forget it, all the other rounds, okay? By the way, I thought it was a great fight. I had picked Madrimov to beat. I had picked Crawford to beat Madrimov, like a 7-5, and I was right, by the way. And some fans even had it the other way around. But I think more so what they're trying to say, what fans were interpreting was that Madrimov gave Crawford a good fight. Okay, so we can leave it at that. But guys, the bad part is that maybe Ring Magazine and Riyadh Season, Turkey, they put too much pressure, too much political pressure to overglaze Crawford in this event. And it could very well be that Turkey's vision beforehand, he was always wanted to bring Canelo. And I had said that even before the Crawford fight. I even said that before. If you guys know me, I said there would be a collision course for Canelo and Crawford to happen when the first insinuations happened from Turkey Al Sheikh, for example, or people like sneaking the idea of it within the Riyadh boundaries, okay? Riyadh season boundaries, Ring Magazine boundaries. And so, for example, Jack Reese, round 6. Now, guys, man, let's be fair here. I've been critical on the Roach versus Tank Davis and was it Steve Willis, right? Steve Willis as the ref in that fight, right? Guys, let's be fair here. Let's be fair about the political and the dark side of boxing. It's not perfect. It's all good. But let's keep it fair when we're going to criticize. By the way, Jack Reese got heavily criticized with Fury and Wilder. All right? We know that. We don't need to review on that, but we know that. Heck, even what was his name? Referee um what's the referee that did Chavez and Meldrick Taylor? I can't believe I forgot his name. Richard Steele, right? Steele, yeah, yeah. It's always happened in boxing, okay? So, anyways, Jack Reese, let's say in round 6, I think there's a moment in round 6 where Jack Reese he says time, right? Because Majarov does like a leaping overhand left hook on Crawford's guard, man, and Crawford gets rattled on it, like bang, you know. And I'm thinking Jack Reese's vantage point, he can see it if it were a headbutt or not. Guys, it wasn't a headbutt. But seconds before that leaping left hook, it's kind of seemed that they had a head collision, right? And you could see after the seconds go by, Jack Reese, you could hear on the broadcast, he could say, "Keep watch yourselves, guys." And he was insinuating the headbutt. Now, usually, if you want a timeout on a headbutt on something, it's by if you see like a gash or a boxer complains about a situation, right? But it's usually if you see a gash, maybe a Crawford might. I mean, a Crawford, a fighter might take a knee. Something is up. We've seen it in boxing many times, right? But I thought, and again, when we're talking about the I wouldn't say the corrupt side, but the suspicious side of things that go on in boxing, from Jack Reese's vantage point, and again, guys, we're criticizing Tank Davis and Roach about that when he took a knee, all that weird stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So why can't we play that? Why can't we apply that same pressure and narrative and skepticism, suspicion to let's say Jack Reese, who Jack Reese was also heavily criticized with that knockdown, right? Within Fury and Wilder. All right. So Jack Reese's vantage point, he says time. Why would he do that? Maybe instead of him focusing or taking advantage of the opportunity to exploit that, okay, because it might have been a headbutt, let me help out Crawford in this situation. All right. Now, guys, I'm not being a hater towards Crawford at all. Don't get that. Just follow me here. And it's actually a justice for any type of suspicion all throughout boxing. All right, because we could play it. We can play. You could bring up a situation, and I can counter it, and we can go back and forth. And at the end of the day, we'll all be in agreement. Because sometimes, as I see in streams, and we're talking, there seems to be like no argument, but guys kind of like flip flop here and there. All right. So what am I getting at, I guess? And you guys know what I'm saying. I thought Jack Reese, by the way, should not have called a timeout in that situation because Madrimov might have had success in that situation in that overhand club that Madrimov had on Crawford in that 6th round. And lo and behold, within those seconds, we see a big mouth starting to inflate on Terrence Crawford, right? Because realistically, when you're that close in the ring, you can see things more clearly, all right? Better than as if you were on TV, by the way. It's just like that. I'm talking about the ref's point of view, okay? Jack Reese's point of view. So I thought in that instance, Jack Reese did a favor to Crawford. And guys, we've seen this all the time in boxing, where a ref will have favoritism to a boxer if certain boxer is hurt. You guys know this, man. I'm keeping it 100 with you guys. We've seen that. So what does that mean, Jack Reese? Um, the the weird thing that's going on in the broadcast, the conservation of Terrence Crawford aligned with Turki Al Sheikh. All right. So, guys, follow me here. We're not even, well, I guess we can now dive into Canelo, but Canelo, for years, highly criticized of being protected. Let me repeat that. Canelo, highly criticized of being protected. Vegas world, right? Vegas, money, protection. Canelo Alvarez, right? We get that. Same thing as, for example, the Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. Same theme, right? You guys follow me. Now we're in an era of sports washing. Terrence Crawford, the last American great, standing to represent the Saudi sports washing, the best American boxer, bar none, right? Let's protect him. All right. So there we go, the influence. And for those of you that's skeptic right now on my angle with this, well, what about Shiraz and Adames? Right? Right? Look at the fights that Shiraz has been in, where Turkey was jumping out of his seat, sorry, praising Shiraz's win or his accomplishment. I think it was maybe Adames versus was it Tyler Denny or no Ammo Williams? When he stopped and he beat Ammo Williams, Turkey's off his feet, all going crazy. Okay, so just think about that motivation or the strategy, Turkey's mindset to protect his All-American investment. It's not so much to really protect Crawford directly, but to protect that I have an American commodity, an all-star right investment. So we got to protect Crawford. But here's the kicker. Why? Because they wanted Canelo Alvarez. Let me repeat that. Turkey, in his mind, wanted to protect Crawford because he needed to bring in Canelo Alvarez. And you guys heard me before. I think, straight up, man, that Turkey used Crawford. And by the way, Crawford knew this. He's not stupid. If you get paid well, why not? Play along, right? Play the part. Crawford knew this, but he used Crawford to get Canelo Alvarez. We know that, guys. Come on, guys. Crawford years before didn't want nothing to do with Canelo. All right, but then he suddenly just jumps up two weight divisions, 154, 160, 168. Let's say three, two, whatever, however you guys want to look at it. But Turkey sees Crawford as like, damn, I gotta make sure we can do undisputed in 2025. I gotta make sure I do that. Why? Because it's part of the strategy for Riyadh season, right? Or Saudi Vision 2030. So within 2024, let's say 2023, all the way to 2030, you got to protect your investments. All right. That even includes probably Canelo Alvarez. Let's keep it 100, right? So Turkey is protecting these investments. Again, it's for a political strategy, guys. Don't think of Turkey as a. I mean, I don't want to sound like a hater towards Turkey because I've praised Turkey too much. I love that he's throwing bags for a lot of fighters, a lot of stars, a lot of American fighters. Hells yeah, man, take that money. You guys know me. If you guys know me, I've always been up for that. And that's where you guys probably respect me if you guys know me. Yeah, man, Cuerpo keeps it 100 about the bags, about the prize fighting, right? Now Andre Ward sees it too. Andre Ward wants a piece of that pie, right? By the way, I had written something months ago, maybe last year, when Andre Ward and Crawford were talking up. They were like some sit down about what would you do or would you come back for 100 million? And Crawford and Ward are talking about it. And I wrote to Ward, hey man, come on, who's gonna give you 100 million? And I got blocked from that. I mean, I don't know if Ward saw it directly, but hey, you're welcome. You're welcome, right? That was the point. Get that money, get that bag. Okay? So I guess going back to Sean Porter, what I don't want in Canelo versus Crawford, please, I don't know, I might be wrong. I'm not worried, by the way, about my prediction. I got Canelo, I got Canelo, before I would say that Bomac and Crawford, they know what's at stake, right? To get more money, to get more bags in the future because they said they wanted more fights. Turkey said that Crawford disclosed to him that he wants more fights. So if you want more fights and you got to come back within a year, you're not going to do crazy ass error mistakes against a Canelo Alvarez. You ain't going to do that, guys. Impossible. So what are you going to do? Most likely, you're going to fight like Jermell Charlo, or by design, as I say, guys, you're going to quit at the stool by design. Let's see if Canelo even allows that. Or who knows? There might be some sort of gentleman's agreement, and Canelo might say, "Damn, you know what? I'm gonna go a little light on Crawford." That's why I say Canelo might look lazy in this fight. Go easy on him. But from what we see, man, Canelo would really hurt Crawford, man. So now watching after the Madrimov fight, and you know, I even say that Roach and Tank, they played him part, man. They played the part, man. I thought that they played they no they what's the word they damn, I forgot. What's the word when they carried each other in that fight by design too? They carried each other by design. PBC Pro Box affiliation. You know, Lamont Roach doesn't even go against the New York State Athletic Commission. Gary Jonas says, "Well, it's up to Lamont Roach if he wants to pursue legal." It's just all very soft tones. Guys, on paper, technically, with that knockdown, on paper, technically, Lamont Roach beat Gervonta Davis. Lamont Roach, who has dedicated his life to boxing, why wouldn't you pursue a reversal in that decision when technically you won that fight with that knockdown? There's no other way technically. So who are you? So I'm talking about Lamont Roach. Who are you doing the favor for? For Tank? For your handlers behind the scenes because they paid you well? Did they promise you more fights if you both of you played the part? Right? Fast forward, Benavidez leaves PBC to Riyadh because Benavidez, he saw how the handlers were managing his strategy, right? To get a fight with whoever. By the way, this is not Benavidez's fault. It might be because he trusted his handlers too much. But in other words, when everything fumbled, when they exploited this situation, they stole that green strap from Bivol, but they still couldn't get him fights. Benavidez like, damn, what the hell's going on, man? You guys fumbled it again. You made me go out to Riyadh. I had to listen to Turkey. I got criticized for not even attending the main event. And now I'm back here. You can't even give me the Callum Smith fight and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. What does Benavidez do? He says, yo, you're going to do this or I'm going to talk. I'm going to walk out. You know? You can have your 10%, but I'm going to go do this. And what happens? The PBC start to rearrange. They let Benavidez go over. Benavidez is now happy, guys. So what am I getting that with that? Tank Davis. Tank Davis. I've been saying this. You guys know me. Tank Davis needs to get his ass over to the Saudis too to make that good money because the PBC don't have money to make better fights. Right? And so what happens, guys? As I told you, the whole Canelo versus Jake Paul, all that stuff was propaganda scams. They got the fans really good with that. That stuff was never real. Right? It was all about that. All happened because the PBC were biting their nails. They were desperate because they couldn't contain Canelo. By the way, they told Canelo to mention 150, 200 million to the Saudis if he was asked about a Benavidez fight. Why? Why? Because PBC, they saw how much Tyson Fury and Usyk were getting bags, upwards of 100 million. So the PBC are like, damn, if these Saudis are throwing that type of loot, because of sports watching and they can do it, damn, we gotta jump on that. We got Canelo Alvarez. Yo, Canelo, say this. Hook us up, right? But what happens? Luckily, Canelo's legal, his management are more smarter than that. They're not contractually bound to PBC. They said, nah, man, I ain't gotta give you that 10 or whatever. I don't even have to do the 80% all revenue of pay-per-view going to me. Hells no. Turkey and the Saudi world, they even offer Canelo bigger money than that. And the PBC like, damn, the PBC couldn't match that. Right? So what happens? Canelo jumps ship. He goes to the bigger buyers, right? Bigger bags, and PBC gets all salty. They start throwing propaganda of them not having of Canelo not having loyalty to the PBC. They get Jake Paul to help with that. Oh yeah, Canelo has no loyalty, right? They use Jake Paul, guys. Why? Because Jake Paul's brother Logan Paul also did business with Al Heyman, so Jake Paul trusted that propaganda scheme. Maybe Jake Paul's a bit naive too, because Jake Paul thinks, okay, I'll do what Al Heyman or the PBC are doing because I could possibly have a big mega fight, right? That stuff doesn't work. Hopefully, I was able to convince fans that that propaganda didn't work, right? Canelo's going to go where the bigger money is, anyways. Jake Paul is not that for Canelo. There's better things for Canelo's legacy than to fight Jake Paul, and Canelo laughed his ass out of that stuff. And the ones that felt salty were Jake Paul and the PBC world, right? So, again, going back to Tank, guys, what are we getting now, right? What are we getting now with the affiliation? Jake Paul and Tank Davis, supposedly set for November. You guys see the connections here, guys. You see how there's loyalty with Jake Paul in the Heyman world, and now with Tank. Tank can't get any big fights, any big paydays, because he's not allowed to go to the Saudis. So what do they tell Tank? Yo, I got you a Jake Paul fight. So now we're talking about a plus 200 pounder who got beat by a guy named Tommy Fury, right? Tyson Fury's younger brother, to fight a 135 or 140 champion, who knows what Tank is, to fight him in an exhibition fight where Tank would be still making good money over there with the Saudis, right? So even Tank's being played. The difference between Tank and Benavidez, Benavidez is more business savvy. Or I should say the Benavidez family are more business savvy, you know? And I was talking about this for months, you know? There's a channel that I usually frequent. It's Rap Star Boxing, really good satire channel. Go ahead and sub to Rap's channel. He's a good guy from the UK. Thank God there's a UK channel like that that understands the concept of satire and how to troll fans. But Rap keeps it 100, even though sometimes he has his strategies, the Haney's, but whatever. That's cool. That's his own thing. Whatever. But he knows what I'm talking about. Other guys on the panel, they know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, let's go all the way back to what I'm talking about with Canelo and Crawford. I don't want Sean Porter on the broadcast. Not that I'm worried about Sean Porter, really, because I think Sean Porter is going to probably, let's say Canelo knocks out Crawford and Canelo won every round too. I think Sean Porter would say, nah, well, I had Terrence Crawford winning all those rounds, and it was kind of similar to the Amir Khan fight, and you know, Canelo got lucky. Nah, man, come on. By the way, I think Sean Porter is thinking like that. So please don't have Sean Porter on the broadcast. It makes it watered down to the realism of scoring rounds and punch stats. Okay? Now, yeah, Sean Porter is a former champion and he's a boxer, but there's a lot of boxers already on there. I don't even mind Sergio Mora. I think Sergio Mora is always up and down, right? But he's transparent. Even Chris Mannix, he doesn't get rounds right many times, right? But he don't score rounds like the way Sean Porter did with Madrimov versus Terrence Crawford. Hells no, that was a disaster, and that was a definite bias. And who knows if that bias was by design because Sean Porter was influenced and coached, possibly even paid extra to be purely biased to Crawford in that, right? Because they need to conserve that investment and assure to the fans that Terrence Crawford is the real deal in order to sell the future fight with Canelo Alvarez. Because I'm sure Crawford versus Canelo, or I should say, sorry, out of respect, Canelo versus Crawford, that was already planned before Crawford versus Madrimov, right? It was already planned. So hopefully you guys the did I even make a proper argument in this stream? Yeah, I mean, I guess I could just say I didn't like the way Sean Porter did the broadcast for Madrimov and Crawford, and I hope that Sean Porter's not involved with the broadcast of Crawford versus Canelo. You know, because it might even be forget the scoring theory for a second. Let's say in the broadcast, you know, if Canelo stops Terrence Crawford brutally, it might even be, well, yeah, this is me, Sean Porter, saying, well, you know, maybe Crawford didn't belong with Canelo. There's weight classes. Oh, it wasn't a fair fight. I don't want to hear any of that kind of stuff. No, no, no. Because again, I'm always talking about pound for pound, right? I like pound for pound. There's a lot of mixed opinions about pound for pound. But for me, pound for pound, guys, are fighters that prove their elite levelness fighting in different divisions and fighting difficult opposition and fighting champions or former champions, but doing that consistently within weights. That's pound for pound to me. That's my interpretation of it. Why pound for pound? Pounds, guys. Pounds, right? A variation in weight. That's what pound for pound is. All right. So there's a debate whether if one guy stays in one division forever and he's pound for pound, that's theoretical. That's theoretical, guys. When one guy stays in a division and he's pound for pound top and he's always there and saying, yeah, he would do good in any division or any era, that's theoretical. That's not real. Real is when the actual fighter, we see it in the real world that he's winning nicely, top level, elite level, winning championships in different divisions in the era. That's pound for pound, guys. That's the realism of it. That's what I got for this one, guys. Shout out to all my homies at Rapstar. Go ahead and subscribe to that channel. Also to Boxeo Atómico and El Profesor del Boxeo. Those are my top channels that I like to frequent. Again, those channels are actually Spanish, by the way. But shout out to them, and I'll catch you on the next one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. Thanks a lot, y'all.